Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Dana and I am so excited to be sharing my love of makeup and beauty with you all. Today I have part 2 of my fall favorites video sharing my top 10 favorite fall eyeshadow palettes. I tried to fit this into the original video, but I had way too many products for one video and I didn't want you to sit through like an hour-long favorites, so I just made them 2 separate videos. If you haven't seen the first one, I'll link it in the cards above for you to check out. I'm trying a slightly different format for these 2 videos than I've tried before. I'm a little bit farther away, so I am going to include some close-up shots as well in case the palettes are harder to see. Let me know if that's something you'd like me to keep trying or if you prefer the closer-up videos. I'd like to hear from you. As with the previous video, these are pre-filmed, but they are definitely going to be my favorites for the fall. I am already certain of it. I have 10 palettes to go through today, but they're in no particular order. The first one I have to talk about is the Colourpop and Raw Beauty Kristi At Forest Sight palette. I love this palette for the fall. I love that it's like richly jewel toned. There's some very beautiful colors in here. You've got this row of sort of neutrally colors at the top, this row of really deep ones at the bottom, and this row of sort of mid-toned, neutral-esque colors in the middle. I think this can do a ton of different looks, and I think it's really, really applicable for the fall, especially if you're someone who wants a little bit of color for the fall, but doesn't want to go super bright. I think this is a really, really good palette, and I know I'm going to get a ton of use out of it. In spot number 2, I have an absolute classic for the fall season, and that is the Urban Decay Naked Heat palette. This was, I believe, 3 or 4 years ago now that this came out. Oh my goodness, that is a long time ago. I absolutely love this palette. I love that there are some very deep, rich, orangey browns. I like that there's some lighter tones. If you're looking to do something sort of inspired by fall leaves, this palette really can take you there, and that's what I absolutely love about it. I think the naked quality is really good. I know people have different opinions on that, but personally these have always worked really well for me, but I do think these are fantastic palettes. I've talked about the third palette on my channel a few times now, but that is the Melt 420 palette. I really love this palette. I know not everybody did, and I can see why. It is a very powdery palette, and it has a ton of pigment, so it's not super easy to work with. And this shade here, Shatter, is terrible. It's just terrible. But the rest of the shades in here are so good that I'm willing to overlook Shatter. I really am. I love this for the fall. Again, you can really kind of get those gradient of the leaves on the trees going from green to yellow to brown. You get a ton of really rich pigmented mattes in here, and I just love it. I think this is an absolutely phenomenal palette for the fall, and I'm so excited to get to keep using it. Another controversial pick is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Subculture palette. I love this palette in the fall, and really for a lot of the same reasons I love the Colourpop and Raw Beauty Kristi one. I love that there's those beautiful jewel tones. It's got some really nice depth, but it's also got some very light lights. I don't mind the shimmers, although I do use this palette more often for an all matte look, although I can get some use out of some of the shimmers as well, but there's only 3 of them in here. I think this is phenomenal for the fall. I like that it's grungy. I like that it actually suits the trend of like the 90s coming back a little bit. I just love this. I think this is a great palette and I absolutely love it for the fall. In spot number 5, I have a little bit of a different pick because this palette doesn't actually contain what you would typically think of as fall colors, nor did it come out in the fall, but that is the Kaleidos and Angelica Nyqvist Club Nebula palette. Now, I know this is a very colorful palette, and traditionally colors like this aren't what people think of when they think of fall eyeshadow, but I think this is great if you're a colorful eyeshadow lover like I am, because of this row right here. These are so deep. They have such a nice depth to them, and that depth means you can really take this look as bold and as deep as you want. You can get those gorgeous like fall and winter smoky eyes, or you can stick kind of to the lighter end as well. There's a lot of variety in this palette. I just think it's so fun, and I love a good red or purple look for the fall, and you can definitely get that with this palette. So even though it came out in the spring and it's not really traditionally a fall palette, I think this is a great fall palette. From the packaging to the way this palette was marketed, everything about this palette screams fall, and that is the Lunar Beauty Moonspell palette. I think of Halloween every time I see this palette, and Halloween is my favorite holiday, so it makes me so happy to look at it. I love the packaging. It's packaged like a spell book. And then when you open it up, you've got some really, really beautiful shades in here. I love that it's got this neutral row in the middle, it's got the greens, and then it's got the pinks and purples. It's just absolutely phenomenal. All the colors are named after famous witches, which I think is pretty fun. And it's just a really, really fun palette. It's good to use. It's also quite beginner friendly because the shades are buildable. So you're not gonna go immediately on with the brush and just overdo it and have so much pigment that you don't know what to do with it. It's a really good way to get into color because they are soft and definitely buildable. I really, really like this palette for the fall, and I love that packaging. I'm obsessed. In part number 1 of my fall favorites, you would have seen me talk about Fenty's Drama Class, the purple blush that I love because I love to add plum tones to my fall looks. This is the palette that I use for those plum tones on my eyes, and that is the Huda Naughty Nude palette. I adore this palette. I think it's just so, so beautiful. I absolutely love those like rich, deep purples, but it's also got some like deeper, like warm browns. This one's almost an orange. Even this shade Slippery down here, I actually don't mind. It is a very weird texture, but it looks quite pretty on the eyes, and it's actually quite nice for just like a wash of color or sparkle when you don't want to do like a full eyeshadow look. I think this is phenomenal. I also love that it would work for quite a few skin tones because it does go quite deep, especially in the shimmers, which is something that a lot of nude palettes lately are missing, where their shimmers, their mattes go fairly deep, but their shimmers are very, very light. I don't think that's an issue with this palette, which I think makes it really good for lots of skin tones. I love this palette, and I think it's going to be a staple in my fall collection. The Colourpop SciFi Green palette is a really, really good one if you're looking to use greens during the fall. So many green palettes that I have are just a little bit too light. They're too spring-like. And this one's just got that depth to it that I love. This packaging makes it really hard to show on camera. But you do have that matte black, which is really awesome, especially if you're looking for like an eyeliner-y kind of tone. It's got these two matte greens, it's got the matte warm brown, and then the gold and the greeny sparkle. I just love this palette. I think it is so good for, again, those grungy kind of army green looks. There are other green palettes that you can absolutely use and you can absolutely get away with for the fall, but I think this one's got the nice depth that I look for because I like my eyeshadow to be a little deeper and bolder in the fall. If you're looking for an excellent orangey red palette but you don't want to splurge on the Urban Decay Naked Heat, Colourpop's Big Poppy is a fantastic option. I absolutely adore this palette. It's a little 9-pan, comes in the cardboard packaging, and it's just so gorgeous. This is an all matte palette ranging from this very, very light shade here to this super deep brown. It's got a very vivid orange in the middle as well as some more like orangey brown neutrals. It's an absolutely fantastic palette to get a very similar look to Naked Heat, but maybe even a little more colorful and a little more red than orange. I think this is a really, really good option, especially if you're someone who likes all matte looks, or you can pair it really easily with a single shadow or a super shock, anything like that to just amp it up a little bit more, but I think this is a great fall palette and I'm so excited to use it. And finally, for number 10, I have the Glaminatrix You Beauty palette. This guy came out in the sort of late spring or early summer, I believe, which coincidentally is actually the fall and winter in Australia. But I don't think it was marketed as a fall palette. I think it was just marketed as an Australia palette. But I love these tones for the fall. Again, there is some lighter tones, so you can lighten it up if you're someone who doesn't like super deep eyeshadow. But if you're like me and you want to really deepen up that look, this blue, the red, the browns, there's lots of things to really give it that nice, impactful depth. The sparkles in here are insane. I've said it a few times on this channel and I will keep saying it. There is nothing in my collection like these sparkles. This shade down here, Decay, might be my favorite sparkle in my entire eyeshadow collection, and I have so many eyeshadow palettes. I absolutely love this palette, and I am so excited to be able to use it for the fall because I think it's just going to create some gorgeous fall tone looks. So that was all 10 of my favorite eyeshadow palettes for the fall. What are your favorite fall palettes? Let us know in the comments down below. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I hope to see you back in my next one. Bye!